Hello and happy week 16. We are so close to being done with this semester. Um, Congratulations. I think most of you have turned in your research-based argument, so that's one last thing that we have to do before the end of the semester. For the rest of the semester, we're going to be primarily working on revising for the final portfolio, and I'm going to walk you through that. I just wanted to let you guys know too that I am working on your media analysis paper right now, and then we'll be jumping into your research-based arguments for grading. Unfortunately, I got a little bit behind on those because I was trying to keep up with all of your assignments that actually pertained to the RBA paper, and I wanted to get comments on your first drafts and things like that so that you could do the best that you possibly could on those first drafts. So just hang tight with me. I will be getting that grading complete, but in the meantime, you will still be able to be peer reviewing your own assignments while I get those grades and those comments up. Because we have this week, we're going to be looking at what the final portfolio entails, as well as doing a turning in one of our, or the first draft of our final portfolio. But before we do that, I wanted to show you something on Turnitin. And I'm going to actually, I'm using a different class so that you can, so I'm not embarrassing anyone hopefully in this class, and this is the teacher view of this, so it will look a little bit different to you, but I wanted to show you that let's pretend that I am, let's just go ahead and say that I am Kaya, and I want to see the comments that, that have been left on my paper through Turnitin's Feedback Studio. It seems like many of you didn't get my notes on this, and I've been commenting on these papers all semester, and I've realized that some of you haven't actually looked at those comments, so I could understand why there might be some confusion, why you might not be doing as well as you had hoped to do. So we're going to just walk through it. Obviously, the email instructions didn't work as well. And what you'll do basically is you're going to click on this similarity report right here. Now, all of your similarity reports for your drafts and your first drafts and your final drafts will all be under 25%. Now, the annotated bibliographies and the outlines are a little bit different because you're integrating a lot of your research, so I wouldn't stress out about that. But the first thing it's going to do once you click on that similarity report is it's going to take you directly into that Feedback Studio. And when we're in the Feedback Studio, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little purple box and make sure it stays purple and it's not black. Then I'm going to click on this blue box and change it from black to blue. And then what that does is and we already have our similarity report up, so that similarity report will show where other items have maybe turned up online or in different articles. These blue buttons, these blue bubbles, you're going to have to click on them in order to see my notes. And here it looks like Kaya had a formatting issue because we have, this should be a hanging indent and somehow these two got split. So those comments are there. The purple comments are any grammatical issues that Turnitin might pick up on. So, and you'll notice that there are these large chunks that are highlighted, and the highlights with numbers are the similarity report. If there are quotation marks around those highlights, and there is a parenthetical citation and hopefully a signal phrase, that means that those highlighted areas are just fine. There's no plagiarism. Now, if you haven't put quotation marks around this or a parenthetical citation and maybe you're missing your signal phrase, I would be a little bit more concerned as you're looking at this similarity report, because that means you have some things to fix for your first draft, and you might have gotten an email from me about accidental plagiarism. So make sure that you are understanding how to use this similarity report. Always check all that highlighted material for the quotations. You can have up to 5 words highlighted before it's considered plagiarism. So now, with all of your citations, all of these citations will actually appear highlighted because usually people are using them, in other works citeds for other sources. So just make sure that you're aware of that. Now here I'm going to click on this bubble, and this is something that a lot of people have been kind of forgetting to do. For MLA, we need to capitalize all words in the title. So donation, cardiac death, respecting patient autonomy, guaranteeing donation, guidance, Oregon Death Dignity Act all need to have capital letters. And then if we scroll down, we see a bunch more chunks that have quotation marks, and it looks like they have this parenthetical citation, but I did make a note here because we don't have a signal phrase. So make sure that you are looking at all of the comments that I've left you. And I can tell all of these individuals have in fact looked at their comments. These individuals have not, so they might have some errors on their first drafts if they aren't actually checking and fixing those things from their annotated bibliographies as they're copying and pasting some of that information into their paper. So make sure you are looking at those comments. I spend a lot of time on them, so I'd really appreciate it if you would look at them and apply them to your work. I'm sorry we didn't get this out there before. I figured many of you, as you are online students, would have used Turnitin before, but I guess I realize that's kind of not the case. If you're ever having issues with Turnitin, go to this little help button and go to students, and in there are a ton of student solutions for any issues you might be having. For example, that similarity report processing time, there's an answer for that. If you don't see your similarity report right after you submit your document, it could be that it needs 25 to 30 minutes to process. It has a bunch of different questions. If you need to delete the paper from your Turnitin database because you want to submit a new copy, you're able to do that. So make sure you're using this help center as online students. This shouldn't, I guess, be any surprise to you, as for the most part, you kind of have to teach yourselves with just a little bit of guided work in terms of the technology piece. So be aware that those things do exist, and I was under the assumption that many of you knew where they were, so I apologize, otherwise I would have talked about it earlier. It just came to my attention that some of you didn't have some of those skills. So now you know where to find that help and also how to get to those reports with my comments on them. So I'm going to click out of Turnitin. At least out of this class, and I'm going to show you guys that coming up this week on Turnitin, I have created a Dropbox. Your first draft of your final portfolio is due on this Sunday, and what you guys are going to be doing is basically compiling a lot of your work and then also creating a final portfolio draft for your RBA essay, and then you get to choose your process analysis or your media analysis. So I'm going to take you into that assignment prompt, which is under resources on our class page if you want to take a look. We have a student example of the final portfolio with a reflective introduction and the final portfolio assignment prompt. So we're going to look at that real quick. This is 300 points. This is a really big assignment, so make sure you do not blow it off and make sure you include all of the information that is asked of you. If you miss, for example, the reflective introduction, you get 100 points docked off right off the bat. If you miss a couple of your former drafts and your final portfolio drafts, you're going to have substantial points docked as well. So first of all, this is really important. Late final portfolios will not be accepted except under extraordinary circumstances, and if they are accepted late, you have to contact me beforehand and let me know what's going on. Otherwise, you will get a 0, and the final portfolio is needed in order to pass the class. So if you do not turn in a final portfolio, that is an automatic failure. This is what we've been working towards throughout the entire semester, so keep that in mind. Your final portfolio will include this semester's very best writing, evidence of this semester's progress in writing, and your reflections of this semester's writing. So that final portfolio will include 2 different sections. You'll have a reflective introduction and your showcase. So here I have a little checklist for you. You do need to submit your final portfolio to Turnitin in one document. So you're going to be copying and pasting first drafts and final drafts, and then copying and pasting your final draft for the final portfolio in there to make corrections off of as well. So hopefully you've saved all of those documents. If you have not, if you've been just working off of your first draft and then saving changes for your final, you do have access to those through Turnitin. How you download that, say for example, maybe you didn't save your first draft, all you have to do is click on RBA, or click on first draft, and there's a way for you to download that copy once you click on the, if you click into the Feedback Studio over here with this little symbol, you can download that copy directly. and I think this is, hopefully it's being a little slow. You can download that originally submitted file so you don't have to search through your computer or try to recover any documents or anything like that. So be aware of that, and thanks, Brooke, for letting me show them on your draft. All right. So that's the first thing that you need to know, is that you do have to have all of these different copies involved and for the final portfolio, and that they're in one Word document. Your reflective introduction is going to be one of the most important pieces of writing that you're going to compose for your final portfolio, because it's going to present the work to your reader and make a case for how your writing has developed over this semester. So as with any important piece of writing, you should start this as soon as possible, since you have your first draft of your final portfolio due this week, so that you can plan it well, draft, revise, edit carefully. You do want to give this piece as much attention as you might for the revisions of your major essays, because this is how I'm going to partially judge how much you've actually learned over the semester, because you're going to be basically making a case for yourself. This introduction should provide specific references to your revised essays where you address a section of the student learning outcome, or a selection, for the student learning outcome, finding and using information. How has research played a part in this semester with your writing? And I want you to actually take some quotes directly out of your writing and use those to show exactly how this research might have helped your writing, how you were able to find and use that information in your paper, how you were able to build an argument off of that, etc. So therefore, you should quote, summarize, or paraphrase from your major writing assignments to justify those responses. Remember that this introduction is about your work rather than your feelings about the course or the instructor. We need to be focusing on the ways in which you have specifically learned, because I can guarantee you, looking back on your process analysis papers to your RBA papers, you have all learned and made those changes, and I can see that you've learned in leaps and bounds just from the first paper to the final paper. So I'm really excited to also see what you have to say about that kind of learning curve that happens as we go through the semester. Also, I want you to reflect honestly about your writing process. Maybe there are certain assignments that didn't help you as much. For example, some students say the topic proposal is kind of fluffy because you don't know where you're going yet, and the annotated bibliography is really helpful because you start figuring that research out right away. So make sure that you're thinking about that information, and we have this little checklist. So for the showcase items, after you write your reflective introduction, this is the order in which you need to include it. You need to have your final portfolio draft of your RBA essay with highlights. You need to highlight every single change you make for the final portfolio. You need to have your RBA final draft and your RBA first draft, and also you need to have a final portfolio draft of your media analysis with highlights, or your process analysis final portfolio draft with highlights. Every single change you make for this draft, this final portfolio, needs to be highlighted so I can see what you've changed very quickly from your final draft to your final portfolio draft. And then also you'll include your chosen essay, either that media analysis or process analysis for the final, and the first draft. So here's kind of reiterating all of that. For the final portfolio, you need to highlight all changes. You need the required format MLA 8th edition for all drafts. If you are still struggling with this, you need to either A, set up a meeting with me through FaceTime or Skype, or we need to somehow have a conversation about what's going on and where you're finding your information. I've been, there's quite a few still of improper citations that I've noticed in your paper, so make sure you know how to do this. This is one of the big pieces of the course, is being able to format things. For example, as your boss might hope you're formatting things in your job, so this is going to be important. Also, you want a clean, polished, and edited version, as well as works cited pages for every essay. So for your reflective introduction, you will write at least 500 words in which you provide a brief introductory paragraph introducing your portfolio and included materials, as well as demonstrate logical writing, persuasive writing, ability to determine what research was needed, effective incorporation of outside information or research, and then you'll conclude with a brief statement assessing your overall experience with that writing process. So you need to address all of these questions, but I've provided with you an example of that memo and what that's going to look like based on some of the questions you might want to answer in each question. Follow each of these paragraphs and follow the format because it will address each of those specific learning outcomes in each of these paragraphs. If you have any questions about this whatsoever,